Let's take a look now at the second type of sentences in English called a compound sentence, 并列住. A compound sentence. Compound sentences have two independent clauses. And there are three ways we might write a compound sentence. Here's the first way we might write a compound sentence. We can use a comma, a逗号, and a coordinating conjunction, 并列连字, a coordinating conjunction. Here's our pattern. Independent clause, comma, coordinating conjunction, and a second independent clause. This is one pattern for a compound sentence. Here are 7 kinds of coordinating conjunctions. The list for coordinating conjunctions is not very long, and in fact, it's a list that you must memorize. Here's an easy way to help you memorize it. You can use the acronym FANBOYS, F-A-N-B-O-Y-S. This spells fanboys. It will help you remember the 7 coordinating conjunctions: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So here is the pattern that we use with this kind of compound sentence. We have an independent clause followed by a comma, a coordinating conjunction, and a second independent clause. Remembering, a compound sentence always has 2 independent clauses. Another way to talk about independent clauses is we can talk about the fact that it has a subject and verb. Also, it might be referred to as a simple sentence, or a main clause plus another main clause. We could think of it as one clause is glued together to the second clause. In this case, we have a comma and a coordinating conjunction. I want to mention here, you can never glue 2 sentences together with only the comma. This is not proper English. Let's take a look at the example down here now. Okay. Mrs. Austen cooked dinner and Mr. Austen washed the dishes. Here is our first independent clause. Mrs. Austen cooked dinner. We've got one subject and one verb. Then we have our glue. Here's our glue, the comma, and the coordinating conjunction. And then we have the second independent clause, subject and verb. Mr. Austen washed the dishes. So this is one pattern for a compound sentence. Here is another pattern for a compound sentence. We can use a semicolon, or 分号, along with a conjunctive adverb. A conjunctive adverb, 副词连字, and 2 independent clauses. A compound sentence always has 2 independent clauses. Here's the pattern. Independent clause, and here's the glue. A semicolon, the conjunctive adverb, a comma, and the independent clause. The list for conjunctive adverbs is longer. You can find the complete list in Writing Academic English, page 169 and page 296 to 297. Here's just a few examples of some conjunctive adverbs. In addition, however, in contrast, therefore, for example. I recommend you look at the list in the book and choose at least 2 in each category to memorize, and that will help you to recognize conjunctive adverbs. The list of coordinating conjunctions is shorter, so it's easy to memorize all of them, Memorize several of the conjunctive adverbs in each category to help you use them correctly too. There's one more oops, I forgot. Let's talk just about the simple pattern here. So our simple pattern then is independent clause, here's the glue, a semicolon, conjunctive adverb, followed by a comma, and then the second independent clause. Once again, we can talk about this independent clause using the terminology independent clause, or simple sentence, or a main clause. They all mean the same thing. An independent clause always has a subject and a verb. Here's the example at the bottom. Mrs. Austin cooked dinner. Here's the glue putting this together. Semicolon, therefore, comma, Mr. Austin washed the dishes. The first independent clause, Mrs. Austin cooked dinner. The second independent clause, Mr. Austin washed the dishes. Move on to the third pattern. The third pattern uses a semicolon also, and of course it's a compound sentence, so we have two independent clauses. Always two independent clauses with a compound sentence. This pattern is much more simple. We just have independent clause, the glue, a semicolon, and another independent clause. This pattern can only be used when the first independent clause and the second independent clause are very related to each other. Look at the example down below. Mrs. Austin cooked dinner, semicolon, Mr. Austin washed the dishes. I just want you to notice again, we can never do this, an independent clause, comma, independent clause. That does not work. It needs a stronger glue, it needs the semicolon. This pattern is not used very frequently, and I don't recommend you use it at all. So let's check your understanding. How is a compound sentence different than a simple sentence? And 2, write the pattern and give an example of each of the 3 kinds of compound sentences. Write your answers down for yourself to check your understanding, and then go on to the last slide to see if you have understood correctly. How is a compound sentence different than a simple sentence? A simple sentence has only one independent clause. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses. Also, a compound sentence uses a coordinating conjunction to connect the 2 independent clauses. My answer here actually is not complete because there are other ways we can connect the 2 independent clauses, as we see down here in answer to number 2. We can connect independent clauses using the comma coordinating conjunction, semicolon conjunctive adverb and a comma, or just a semicolon. I hope this helped you understand compound sentences. Feel free to bring your answers to class if you'd like to have someone check your sentences that you wrote. We have one more video to help us understand the last 2 types of English sentences.